Good evening, I'm Lee Wilkinson. I'm Product Director for Hearst. So what I thought I'd do this evening is to put the consumer lens on a bit and share some insights in how we develop our consumer products ultimately to engage consumers, increase frequency and increase reach, because I thought there's a parallel between us and advertising in that sense. So I thought we'd talk about those perspectives. The structure of that, I'll talk about how the digital consumer world is evolving and how that's impacting our brands, our products and ultimately our consumers and what that means to us. Talk a little bit about how we build products and the sort of techniques we're using within there to start unwrapping the puzzle that is the digital consumer world. Give you an indicator of results. It's always good to see what it actually means in terms of results. Talk about the digital advertising mix and the challenges that there are within that as that evolves within that digital consumer world, and some thoughts on how we move forward in building the future. So let's have a look. So our consumers' habits and behaviours are evolving constantly. If we go back to 1995, we didn't really have the web. If I'm a digital media business, ultimately I had a very fairly simple way of reaching my consumers. I create some content, I put some advertising in my content, and I wholesale that to a retailer who then gets that to a consumer. There's really only one or two ways to get a magazine at that point in time. Now, with the input of the internet, and then more rapidly in the last few years, is we've kind of got what is described, I think, in places as the post-PC era, is we gained the internet and we gained a new way of reaching our consumers and engaging with our consumers and bringing advertisers into that mix. Over the last few years, that's exploded in terms of we've seen mobile, tablet, laptop really moving into the environment, and our consumers having these devices in their hands. Their relationship thus with us and technology changing quite dramatically at that point in time. So suddenly I'm in a situation where I can consume my products or do my shopping in the car park, at a train station in the morning or in the evening. So it's a much broader mix at that point in time. Ultimately, for me as a media owner, that's opened up my challenge, as I'm no longer a wholesaler anymore. I now have direct links with the consumer and ultimately developing a consumer experience. Add to that mix, beyond there, actually the true multi-platform world is actually you've got horizontal players like Google, Facebook, you've got aggregators like Zeit, Flipboard, you've got iTunes as a new distribution medium. There are so many ways for me to interact with my digital consumer now, and so many opportunities and threats, but there's a lot of opportunities within there. But what's the bottom line on that? It's the consumer's choice. They've gone from having one choice now to have many choices, and actually for me, I shouldn't be trying to dictate to my consumers how they interact with my brands. They are going to choose, and ultimately if I'm not in the right places providing the right experiences, then I'm not necessarily going to get the consumers ultimately. So that's important. Now, in terms of how do you develop products within this world, let's have a quick look at the techniques that we're using. So building products in the multi-platform world or the post-PC era, you have to understand a lot more about your consumers' habits and behaviours. So if we go to a data level view of things, just in terms of, this is 3-device interaction over a day, looking at the data of when people would interact with different devices. You see the red line is where desktop, that's the very traditional 9 to 5, I'm in the office, with lunchtime I'll be interacting with digital products. If I layer then that this person actually has a mobile phone in their pocket, I suddenly open up, well, there's some commuter time in the morning where they get up and they have a look at things there. And then I layer actually there's an opportunity in the evening where again they're consuming products. You layer the tablet on there, you get the late evening and early morning. So suddenly your mix of media and opportunities spreads across the day. From where, if I'm a magazine brand, this is obvious, but once a month for probably 2 days I'm getting people reading my magazine, to actually where every day there is an opportunity for a good 12, 14, 18 hours of the day for me to interact with them where appropriate. So how do I find out where is appropriate, I suppose, is a good question there. A technique we use is understanding touch points and understanding how consumers interact with media, news, apps and devices. This is a technique we use to understand, okay, we look at consumers, we work out what devices they own, we talk to them about when they use those devices and for what for. And what you'll see there is you get levels of interaction. So if I go to the bottom line, you've got Emily there, she's a bit of a showbiz junkie. There's a lot of them in the UK, I think, judging by the Daily Mail's success. I think she gets up in the morning, she pulls open her smartphone, she has a look there, she has a quick check on the Daily Mail at that point in time. She hops on the train, she commutes for a bit, there's dead time there, so she's reading potentially The Guardian or something along those lines. Then through the day you'll see she's sitting at her desk, she's in a work environment. She might be doing dual screening where she's sitting there with her smartphone and she's just checking Daily Mail headlines or other things on her smartphone. Or she may be using her PC at lunchtime, and what it does, it starts developing a rich picture of how our consumers could potentially interact with our products, and it starts guiding us as to where may be appropriate. So for example, if I've got someone who's sitting in the office on a big screen and they're using the internet, I probably don't want to put big naked pictures of celebrities on there because they've got their work colleagues around them. So it's understanding what's appropriate for at what time. If they're interacting on a smartphone, there is a behaviour on a smartphone. It's very much about snacking content. You probably don't want to give them a 10,000 word essay to read at that point in time. You might want to concentrate on 50 words and make it very pictorial. So understanding our touch points. Another way of looking at that, and there's some parallels into the way a marketeer might look at how it's a marketing journey as such, is the other way we look at how their journey develops in terms of engagement with us. Our product development. From that initial, they found us on Google, they've arrived at an article page and they've enjoyed that article. How do we then draw them through the funnel to understand how to engage in our product? Ultimately, hopefully, to engage regularly with our product. So when we're designing our products, we're thinking our article pages on our website have things that make them want to click on next, and there could be intelligence like Outbrain is a good way of doing that looks at related content and pushes that to the consumer. So we try and model that. It's good to understand how you can draw people through that journey. And ultimately, what that enables you to do, once you start understanding that tapestry of touch points, is you start understanding where the products are that you can create within your portfolio. That is beyond what was our traditional mix of a printed magazine. You can develop an iPad site, your website, and you're developing each one tuned for the experience that you're trying to develop within there, very much focused on the customer need. So in terms of result, what does it mean? So there's two key points within here. The first thing it does is it deepens your engagement with that audience. If you have an audience who are engaging on 3 different mediums with you, they are going to be more loyal to you than someone who finds you on a search engine or interfaces with you once a day. So you deepen that engagement, they become more regular, that loyalty builds, which helps you through that engagement funnel piece. The other thing is it extends because you're giving choice. So some people's preference is to read certain types or consume certain products on certain media. They may only use a tablet to consume fashion journalism. An example, an extreme example, but you're offering that, again, you are being where the customer is rather than them having to find you, basically. So, some techniques in terms of developing our product sets. In terms of advertising, we don't have to look at that detail. The advertising marketplace, the digital advertising marketplace, there's a lot of players in it, I think. It's end to end, there's a lot of players. Some of these parts are pretty mature, and then good growth, real-time trading, or real-time bidding is very in great growth at the moment. You can see social media is growing at the moment. You can see that search is growing. These are established areas. The interesting area is the mobile space. Is actually there's great potential. It's a very young area, I think, in terms of people haven't really, my opinion is that we haven't really realised what can be done within mobile as yet. It's in its infancy as such. So, what's the challenge? And I think to the presentation before is how do we integrate our advertising within the overall experiences? So where I'm looking at how my products are touching and working with our customers, how do we make sure that ads are integrating into that and becoming part of the DNA of the experience? I think that's vital, because if I look at a magazine 20 years ago, I open up the first 20 pages of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Elle. There's the adverts at the beginning, which are beautiful adverts, and they're part of the experience of the magazine. That is a package of entertainment that someone is consuming. How do we achieve that on the new mediums? I think that there's the question and the challenges there. I think there's a lot of experimentation, there's some wins, there's some failures, but ultimately we're kind of at the beginning of the path, I think. So, some thoughts just to end up on how we rise to that challenge. Okay, I don't think we should assume the answer is already there. The media players, the brand, or the agencies, anyone in that ecosystem. I think it's about experimenting, learning and evolving. I think there's some partnership involved in there. I think we should be partnering to discover what are the most effective ad formats or engagements within those products. There's a spirit of discovery there. And we should be investing in proving what's working. I think that's crucial in understanding that. Maybe controversial, but I'm not sure we should get hooked up on charging models right now if we don't know what the answer is. I think while you're discovering, I think that's probably, if you're in partnership, you should be thinking in that way. And ultimately, you should be treating your advertising products in the same way that you're treating your B2C products. I think that's a key thing. You should be evolving it and learning as you go, as our consumers' behaviours evolve. Thank you.
firsttuesday.org.uk. Don't network, be the